The cobblestone streets, the breathtaking cathedrals, the timeless art. But underneath all that beauty, Europe is breaking. Immigration is overwhelming infrastructure. The euro is a ticking time bomb, and welfare systems are being abused. You often hear this phrase, Europe is the museum of the world, and living here can sometimes feel like being trapped in a museum. Beautiful, but stuck in the past. I've heard first-hand reports of migrants new to Germany coming to an orientation day at a company with 2 feet and 2 hands, perfectly able to do basic labor, and after being presented the rudimentary jobs that the company was offering, they said, why would I want to work at your place if I can just sit at home all day and just get maybe 200 euros less per month? This is just one example of policies being stuck in the past, rigid and unable to adapt to changing circumstances. Hi, it's Johannes, and in today's video, we'll explore some major issues that plague Europe today. There are a lot of tough issues to get through, but at the end of the video, I'll present my very own perspective and give a somewhat more hopeful take on the matter. So let's dive in. Europe's history is unmatched. From Paris to Florence, it's a cradle of art, philosophy, and democracy. But what happens when a society is so obsessed with the past that it forgets to plan its future? Traveling the world and speaking to people from other nations, you often get the sense that Europeans have this feeling of entitlement, that they are the origin of everything and that's why it should always be that way. Well, careful there. Competition is closing in. While Europe celebrates its achievements, other parts of the world are racing ahead. Its legacy might be glorious, but its presence is anything but. Europe used to lead the world of innovation. From the Industrial Revolution to the invention of so many things, its contributions have changed the world. The printing press, arguably the first machinery to make mass production possible, was invented in Germany. Today, Europe lags far behind the US, Asia, or the Middle East in technology and progress. The reason for that is, in my opinion, a cultural one. It's this resistance to change, the risk-averse nature of people here. For example, failure in the US is actually celebrated. In Europe, if you fail, you're branded a failure forever. In Silicon Valley, failure is celebrated as part of the process. Combine that resistance culture towards change with endless bureaucracy, and you've got a recipe for stagnation. Europe's bureaucracy is legendary, and not in a good way. Want to start a business in Germany? Be ready for at least 8 months of paperwork. Applying for permits in Italy feels like stepping back into the 19th century. There is some truth to the saying, the US innovates, China replicates, and Europe regulates. Compare that to places like Singapore, the US, or the UAE, where setting up a business is fast and streamlined. That bureaucratic apparatus, of course, must be fed. And where does money come from? Taxes, of course. No wonder European taxes are so high if the machine that it needs to power is so inefficient. Now, I don't want to get into the nature of every single tax. At the end of the day, it's about the average tax that you pay as an entrepreneur, and that is a competitive question from region to region. What location gives you the best deal? It's not so much about equality and what feels right. It's more a question of what are the others doing and how do we fit into this. For young entrepreneurs, this is a very clear message. Europe is not the place to build your future. Europe has long been a hub for migration, but recent waves of migration have exposed cracks in the social and economic systems. There is absolutely a case for immigration. Europe's population is aging, and somebody's got to do the jobs and supply the welfare system in the future. Without immigration, Europe will collapse under its demographic pyramid. But there's a problem with immigration, especially in Germany, that's the country I can speak for the most, where there's a disconnect between the goals that we want to achieve with immigration and what is actually happening on the ground. This is a sensitive topic, and at the end of the day, many people ask themselves a question, are these migrants doing the country a favor, or is it something that is going in the wrong direction? People have slowly started to adapt the mindset that we welcome people, we welcome everyone, but people who come to our country need to play by our rules. Otherwise you'll have protests and social unrest, and that's no use to anyone. Immigration policies aimed at short-term fixes are creating long-term problems, fueling social tensions and political instability. Europe's economy isn't just fragile, it's also built on a currency that could implode. The euro, introduced as a unifying force, has shown its cracks in 2011. Remember Greece, Spain, Italy? But these problems weren't fixed. They were just temporarily swept under the carpet. Fast forward to today, the same exact risks are bubbling underneath. Today, debt is a major issue in even the bigger countries. Italy is still heavily indebted, and then look at France and the current discussions in Germany about raising the debt ceiling. With every euro that you spend that you don't actually have, you're digging your own grave. That goes for countries just as much as it goes for individuals or companies. And the Eurozone lacks the tools to deal with another major crisis. And if one country defaults, that could rip the whole system apart. Yes, we haven't seen a default of a country in Europe in our lifetime, at least not in my lifetime, but that has happened in the past and it will happen again. Europe's social model depends on very generous government spending, but it's funded by debt that's becoming unsustainable. Pension systems are running out of money. There are not enough young people to support the aging population, tying back to the migration argument. And in Germany, politicians are coming up with new word creations that hide the fact that they are indebting the country even more. The word Sondervermögen, which translated means exceptional wealth, was invented to mask the fact that billions of new debts were taken on. If interest payments start consuming too much of the national budget, governments will have to cut essential services or face default. Europe's welfare systems are some of the most generous in the world, but are they sustainable? Unemployment benefits, housing subsidies and other forms of social payouts are higher than the minimum wage in some countries. You understand people saying, why should I go to work if I can just stay at home and get paid even though I do nothing? This creates a culture of dependence and misuse. Generous payouts are also attracting migrants who come to the countries not for work, but to make use of the social system and claim benefits. While welfare systems are designed to protect the vulnerable, they are in some cases misused and exploited in ways that strain the public resources and create resentment among taxpayers. Keep in mind, somebody has to go to work, pays taxes to pay someone who just lies around and doesn't go to work because benefits are just more attractive. That's a difficult sell. Europe isn't doomed, don't get me wrong, but it's running out of time. It needs to, first of all, simplify regulations and make it easier to innovate. Secondly, rethink immigration policies to focus on integration and long-term prosperity. Balance welfare generosity with incentives to work, and address the ticking time bomb of the euro's instability and high government debt. We need to stop obsessing about the past and start building the future. And there are some signs of progress. I mean, look at Estonia leading digital innovation, or even Berlin's startup culture is exemplary of people who get things done. But these are rare exceptions in a continent that feels stuck in neutral. Now, I promised to circle back to the idea of Europe as the museum of the world, and I want to offer a more hopeful perspective on that. Europe is beautiful, and we have to be careful not to want to copy other places just because something has worked in another place. That doesn't mean it works in Europe. Europe's beauty is there to be preserved. It would be catastrophic if you were to build the world's tallest building in the city of Vienna, for example. Or imagine other architectural leaps into the future in beautiful Paris. There's definitely some use of these conservative regulations and being very careful about what you want to change. Change can still happen, but you need to be careful, and it can be an intelligent way of adapting based on your unique circumstances, and every country's circumstances are unique. Another part that we haven't spoken about is tourism. Europe, for its beauty, is obviously attracting a lot of tourists every year. Let's double down on that and see the tourism economy thrive even more. People who've done a certain craft the same way for hundreds of years often think that they are less worthy than people who invent new technologies, and that's not true at all. Craft is actually sexy. And if you can get that point across to the people doing it and conserve the arts that is artistic because it is so old, that gives a new appreciation for the things that have always been around. By leaning into the craft and the production of traditional recipes like French, Italian cheeses and Austrian hams and cured meats and Bavarian beer, for example, Europe can actually prosper from conserving the old ways. And the term being the museum of the world doesn't have that negative connotation anymore, but it can be used to lean into it and actually be the museum of the world. That can be a great thing. And last but not least, Europe is a great place to get old in. With industrialization reaching to even further parts of the world, there will be a willingness to pay a high price for fresh air and a beautiful view. And who doesn't want to get old with fresh air and a beautiful view? But what do you think? Do you think Europe has what it takes to make the right steps and build a future that is prosperous? Are we able to turn around the museum of the world expression to be something hopeful, or are we stuck in an old museum forever? Let me know in the comments. If you're frustrated or inspired by this topic, share this video and let's start a conversation of what's next for Europe. Thank you for watching.